And you're very welcome. This is The Beautiful Truth with Fintan Dunne. Thanks for joining me. Good to be here with you as we take a look at the astonishing events of the last few days. And I'm bringing it up there, a report on the journal.ie. The second interim report of the Commission on Mother and Baby Homes was published in the last few days. And I can do no more than quote that headline: immoral and repulsive. Fury at Sapone's refusal for redress for mother and baby home survivors. The Coalition of Mother and Baby Home Survivors called it a shameful decision. Indeed it was. And there is a great sense of betrayal now in the community of people, the adopted persons, the persons who spent time having been infants in mother and baby homes, and of course the most significantly affected in terms of sheer impact on life and number involved, the mothers who were incarcerated in those homes. This is the Commission of Inquiry, set up by James Riley back in 2015, and at the time it was something that the Irish First Mothers Group was horrified at, and they weren't the only ones. You see, back in 2015, when the Commission was set up by this gentleman here, Dr. James Riley, there was a great deal of concern among the mothers that the judge who had been appointed was going to do the kind of job that judge had been appointed to do before, which was a job that favoured the interests of the government. And James Riley appointed Judge Yvonne Murphy to the Commission of Investigation into Mother and Baby Homes. Now, he had previously appointed that very same judge to another very important position in investigating what happened with symphysiotomy, a brutal practice which was carried out in Ireland on women who were made victims of lifelong injury as a result of their treatment during or after giving birth. And if we just take a look at some of what's ongoing with that issue, here back in November 2013 is a statement by the survivors of symphysiotomy group. SOS are dismayed with the terms of reference set out for Judge Yvonne Murphy, who has been appointed by the government to produce a report for a potential redress scheme. And then on the 6th of September 2014, the same group talking about how the government redress scheme announced flouts human rights standards and ignores UN recommendations. That's what happened the last time Judge Yvonne Murphy got involved in a commission of investigation of some kind. In fact, this was just a non-statutory investigation. But that was the outcome. So it was really not that surprising, was it, that in 2017 we find ourselves some distance into the work of the Commission, realising that in fact it's the same old story, and that another betrayal in effect has taken place. You see, the initial terms of reference were clearly defective and limited in an incredible way, because it wasn't even proposed to look at the role of adoption agencies in what happened with what was an effective baby trade, which was running in Ireland over decades. So with a limited scope which excluded the majority of women affected, and not even an investigation of the systematic issues with regard to adoption agencies, it was clear that this wasn't going to get to the truth. But don't worry, we were assured. Don't worry, this commission will fearlessly go wherever the evidence leads it. It will be able to amend and adjust and alter its terms of reference as we go forward, and this is merely an initial step. Well, I tell you, we're a long way from that now. And the indications coming out of the second interim report are that you're going to get no extension to look at other issues. In fact, every issue about Tuam failed to be referenced properly by the Minister in announcing this in the Dáil, Minister Sapone. And there's going to be no redress. And it's going to be a minimalist investigation, and then they will shut it down, dust their hands, take the report, file it away in the law library, and that's the end of you. That's the plan anyway. But I don't think it's going to work out like that, because I don't think that the people who have campaigned for so long are going to take it. But what I'd like to do is take a look at the genesis of this, how this got set up, so that we can learn from the experience of this effective betrayal. You know, it was Joan Burton in the Dáil who welcomed this, a Labour Party initiative in many ways, I feel, because of the involvement of a Labour Party insider like Susan Lohan in this issue, and something that you would expect Joan Burton to be all over. Indeed, she was welcoming and supporting the motion to establish a commission of investigation into mother and baby homes. And indeed, Susan Lohan did so also. I'll get on to that. But, you know, everybody wasn't on board with that. The mothers certainly were not on board with this welcome. And neither was a deputy in the Dáil who had personally been very affected by it. And that deputy is Anne Ferris. And I'd like you to have a listen to what Anne Ferris thought about the proposed commission. Here she is speaking about what was required.
People with similar backgrounds to mine, who would have been barricaded behind the glass partition of the visitors' gallery, have not been offered the opportunity yet to have their voices and stories heard. Their stories and what the future Ireland can learn from them are the reason why this commission of investigation is so important. Their stories, like my story and my sister's story, demonstrates why this needs to be a broad and all-embracing inquiry. The mother and baby homes, the adoption processes, the Magdalen laundries, the private nursing homes, the county homes, the church hierarchies, the religious organisations and the state are all part of a very large jigsaw puzzle that must be looked at in its entirety. Until this is done openly, honestly and comprehensively, the gaps in the lives of families all over the country cannot begin to be filled.
Deputy Anne Ferris there speaking, and she has personal experience, not just as an adopted person, but also as a mother who was affected by issues of pregnancy in young age. Now, with that experience, she knew and laid out there the comprehensive inquiry that was required. And she had the courage of those convictions. When it came to the Dáil and the debate on these issues, she made her position very clear, and she was not happy with it. In fact, let me just quote from her as we take a look at what she said let me get the date on this for you, in the 28th of January 2015 in the Dáil. And this is Deputy Anne Ferris speaking on these issues. And, you know, it is from personal experience in her case. She said, just before I left the Forsaken exhibition, one of the artists very kindly asked me to put my firstborn daughter's name on one of the hundreds of tiny hand-sewn dresses that formed part of the display. It was a beautiful idea. But even after all these years, I could not bring myself to share the baby name of the little girl who was taken from me. Instead, I put my own name on the dress. This inquiry process, she said, requires great sensitivity, an open door, a listening ear for all the witnesses to this dark corner of Ireland's past, regardless of the title above the door of the institution where they once lived. The sorrow and cruelty was equally real to all involved. As legislators, we cannot and should not discriminate, and sadly, I cannot put my name to this proposal. And Anne Ferris, in that moment, stepped outside of the Labour Party. She forsook the party whip. She automatically disqualified herself from the party because she had a principled stand to make on the issue. Clearly, what was proposed was absolutely insufficient. It was a complete betrayal of everything that campaigners had worked for so long. She knew that from her own personal experience, not just as an adopted person, but as a mother also. Now, by comparison, her party leader was welcoming and supporting this motion to establish a commission of investigation, and proceeded to do just that in the Dáil. And this was pushed through with the encouragement of Joan Burton. Now, you know, Joan Burton, At the time, and remember, Joan Burton was in government, so this was government business, and Labour Party wanted a success here. They didn't want carping. They didn't want to hear the like of Anne First taking away from what was to be credited as a success, the establishment of this commission of investigation. They didn't want voices of realism speaking. And here we are with, on April the 13th of this year, Spark Ireland. You know what Spark Ireland is? It's the official account for single parents acting for the rights of kids, Spark. And it's lone parents. And they campaign for the rights of lone parents, the vast majority of whom are single mums who kept their child, who were committed to their family, and who found Joan Burton cutting their benefits. So it's really incongruous to see someone supporting the rights of women who were put into mother and baby homes, the rights of their offspring, children and adopted persons to information and access, and at the same time acting politically to cut funding to this group. Now, Spark Ireland is reminding us all that April 2012, Joan Burton promised not to cut lone parents unless there was an affordable childcare. And here we are in April 2017, hashtag broken promises. So the Joan Burton, which was supporting this motion, was simultaneously acting against lone parents. And that's what's incongruous about all this. So on the one hand, you have Joan Burton, which is, I believe, an establishment position of welcoming an extremely limited commission of investigation. And on the other hand, you have a person of principle who has personal experience of it and who says she cannot put her name to it. Now, what did the Adoption Rights Alliance do? Did they back Anne Ferris? Did Susan Lohan, campaigning for years on these issues, back Anne Ferris? Or did she back the party leader of Labour, who was at that time inflicting penalties on single parents? Let's look. Let's look at the Irish Times for Friday the 9th of January 2015. Mother and Baby Homes Commission can compel drug companies. Commission will cover living conditions, high mortality rates, vaccine trials. Commission of Investigation, James Riley, blah, blah, blah. Blah, blah, blah. A spokesman for the Coalition of Mother and Baby Home Survivors, Paul Redmond, said the group was genuinely delighted by the breadth of the terms of reference, which he said went far further than we had hoped. Well, obviously Anne First didn't feel like that, but there you go. Everyone's entitled to their point of view, aren't they? And let's go on and see who else commented on it. Oh, here we are. Susan Lohan of the Adoption Rights Alliance said she was broadly happy with the measures outlined for the women and children who were resident in mother and baby homes. There's two of the major groups in this area, both welcoming, being broadly happy. I think that's a welcome. However, she said its terms only covered adoptions which originated in mother and baby homes, leaving a substantial number, of course, the majority, outside the scope of the investigation. But, you know, that's when you elaborate and go on and explain how you're not fully happy. But if you're broadly happy, I think it's fair enough to say that you welcome that. That's the Irish Times anyway, and the reporters involved there. I'm sure they're reflecting Pamela Duncan, Anya McMahon. I'm sure they're reflecting what Susan Lohan said to them. Let's just check somewhere else just to be sure. Here's Fikra Connick and Noel Baker in the Examiner, and that's on the 10th of January, the following day in 2015. Susan Lohan of the Adoption Rights Alliance said she was broadly happy, but had some concerns, specifically regarding adoptions of the huge number of children in state hospitals, and the terms of reference excluded them, pretty much what the Times had said, yeah. And let's just take a look at the Adoption Rights Alliance own press release on the issue on 9th of January. Adoption Rights Alliance gives cautious welcome to inquiry, but cites grave concerns. Wait, hold on a second. Is it welcome or grave concerns? I'm getting a little bit confused here. Grave concerns. The group has grave concerns that the inquiry has from the outset been limited to only investigating the practices and procedures from the institutions, agencies and individuals with a direct connection to a mother and baby home. Exactly, that's the same point that they're making to the Times, etc. It's called a grave concern there. But it's a cautious welcome to the inquiry. And if you were a journalist quoting in a single sentence what Adoption Rights Alliance was, their position was, I think you'd say it was a cautious welcome. And you might even go further and say, well, broadly happy, according to the Irish Examiner and according to the Times. Again, broadly happy. So that's what side Susan Lohan of the Adoption Rights Alliance came down on. Not on the side of Anne Ferris, who made the right call and rejected this flawed inquiry from the beginning, but on the side of Joan Burton and Labour. So, when you've campaigned on this stuff for years and it comes to crunch point, really, are you an adoption rights campaigner first and a Labour Party person second? Or are you a Labour Party person first and an adoption campaigner second? That's what it boils down to for me. Nobody has to talk for the mothers. They're quite capable of speaking for themselves, for the benefit not just of themselves, but for all the women of Ireland who have been shamed into silence down the years. And they're speaking. They've been on media around the country ever since the government admission that Tuam was in fact a cover-up and that it really all did happen, ever since that came out. And long may they continue to speak out. Please help with this campaign. It is a vital human rights campaign. Tens of thousands of people were affected. First Mothers Group says it was genocide. And I believe if you look at the International Criminal Court Act of 2006, some of the attached schedules, and take a look at the genocide definition there, I think you'll agree it was. Okay, that is about it, I think, for this edition of The Beautiful Truth. I will be back soon with more, and I hope you can join me for that. But in the meantime, this has been Fintan Dunne reporting